Now that the wild card series is over, the Mariners will face the Tigers. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the series analysis episode of the Seattle Baseline Podcast. My name is Julian Smith, and I'm with Alex Hong. Alex, it's been basically a week of no baseball, but that means the Mariners are coming back super fresh, good to go. How are you feeling right now?
Yeah, Julian. The wild card series is over, but the Mariners didn't play in it, and usually that would mean the Mariners were eliminated from the playoffs and didn't make it. But nope, they had a first round bye, so the Mariners got to relax and watch the watch the wild card from their couch, but like in a good way to see who they were gonna play. But yeah, the matchup is set. The Mariners are gonna face the Detroit Tigers in the ALDS, and yeah. What do you think about this matchup, Julian? Like, we got a lot to talk about in this series.
Dude, this is gonna be an interesting matchup. I knew like the Tigers had the edge over Cleveland because I knew that like I thought the roster was better. And even though Cleveland had a really good role going the into the wild card game, I thought the Tigers were definitely a better team. So I think it's interesting. I think in this case, the Mariners have a better team than the Tigers. The only real strength that I see from the Tigers is Scooble, or as we say, Scooby Doo, Seattle native, or I don't know if he's
Seattle,
Seattle
he went
native,
to
but
Seattle
Seattle
U.
U, yeah,
He went to,
Seattle U
I don't think
native,
he's a Seattle native. He just went to Seattle U. So there are a lot of
yeah,
Scooble fans in around Seattle because of that.
yeah. So I think that those games where Scooble comes out are going to be tough, but I don't know how tough the Tigers roster is going to be. Casey Mize was really good until the All Star game, and it seems like he's fallen off the picture of one of the better pitchers in the league. So I think you've got Scooble and then a few bullpen guys, and that's really it for pitching in terms of the Tigers. I just don't see the Tigers being really that um, that offensively sound enough to complement the pitching that's going around them.
Yeah, and I think one thing we need to do is look at what the Tigers did last year against the Guardians, which in the ALDS. So last year, the Tigers in the wild card round, they ran Scooble game one and they won, right? And then the second game, I believe they ran a bullpen game against Houston and they swept them, right? So we didn't even know who got to start the next series or in the third game. But what they ended up doing in the ALDS last year is that in game one, they ran a bullpen. I think they ran either an opener or a bullpen day, but essentially it's the same thing applies, and they lost. Then they ran a skew bowl in game two and they won. Game three, I remember that one they had a bullpen day as well, but they did win that bullpen day. And then game four they had some starter, and then game five they ran Skubal, but Skubal played bad in that game, and then they lost the series. So last year, essentially what the Tigers were doing is that they were running Skubal and then just bullpen games for the rest of their for the rest of their games, which is obviously not that good, but they're basically pitching around Skubal. And then this year, it's pretty much very similar. It's better than it was last year because Casey Mize has the ability to potentially be good. Now, he hasn't been good in the second half of the year, but he still has the potential to be good, and that's why he's still getting starts. So, I think we should mention the pitching matchup. So, the Mariners in game one are rolling out George Kirby, and the Tigers are rolling out a bullpen day. I think their technical starter is Troy Melton, but it's going to be basically a bullpen day. Game two, at home again, we're gonna have Castillo against Skubal. So that's gonna be a big matchup, right? And then everything after that, up till this recording, which is on Friday night, has not been announced. But it's most likely that, unfortunately for the Mariners, Wu is not gonna pitch, or Wu will not be ready to pitch at that game. So most likely, probably gonna be Logan Gilbert against Casey Mize, is my assumption based off the Tigers' order. And then in game four, if that it were to happen, we'd either run. See, that's a little tough. I want to know what your thoughts are. Do you think they're going to run Kirby on short rest? Or I guess the Mariners could also technically run a bullpen game. I want to know what your thoughts are on that. and that would be against Jack Flaherty for the Tigers.
Yeah. I think it's going to be Kirby. I don't think that the Mariners trust, well, they don't, I don't know how much they trust Kirby at this point of the season, but I do think that they trust him more than Miller. A short rest Kirby is probably better than a banged up Miller
A
at this
banged up
point.
Miller slash Hancock, I don't know. That you could kind of mix something up in there, but that's a little very questionable.
At this point, I don't think there it's an option to go with Hancock unless you're going for a bullpen day and Hancock goes 3 innings
Yeah,
and
I
then you've
would
got
think I
another.
would possibly I thought of the idea maybe what they can do is do a Miller slash Hancock day, but I still think I would rather have Kirby out there.
Yeah, I do think that the bullpen day with Hancock could make sense. Ever since joining the bullpen, Hancock's sweeper seems to be looking really well. So I think that that's something to consider when Hancock last year is not the same player as Hancock this year, who's absolutely been a much better player in terms of his ability to get swing and miss has been a lot
Mhm.
better. And I think he's overall a better pitcher. So if you want to use him as a bullpen day starter for the first 3 or 4 innings, I think that's an option. I just think that having Kirby out there and then having Hancock at some point come out during that game as maybe Kirby comes out after 5 innings or 6 innings, and then you've got the bullpen to go for the rest of the games, I think is a better strategy.
Yeah. I definitely I would agree with that probably as
Yeah.
well. So yeah, and then in game five, we'll probably run either Castillo or Kirby, depending on who we actually ran in game four, and Skubal will definitely pitch in game five. Now, Skubal, the Mariners have gone against him twice this year, and they've actually done pretty well. They've won both of the games against Skubal. But Skubal just pitched against the Guardians and had like an unbelievable start. He went like 7 and 2/3 innings, and he was throwing like over 100 by the end of the whatever he got out of the game. And Scooble this year, because last year I remember like his fastball is still really good, but last year his fastball was really good. But this year his changeup has also been really good at getting swings and misses. So, I mean, he's just a deadly pitcher all around. There's not too much I can say, right, for the strategy against Skubal, right? But if the Mariners could get him out of the game earlier, like, and drive up the pitch count, that would be ideal. Because to hit against Skubal is obviously very difficult. He's definitely, in my opinion, the best pitcher in the American League. So if we could get his pitch count up and take him out earlier than what he went in the other game, which was 7 and 2/3 innings, like if we get him out after like 6 innings, I think that's actually pretty good.
Yeah. I think for me, when I look back at those school games, um, especially I think it was the one right before the All-Star game. Or what was it, the All-Star
Ye-
game or the trade deadline? It was right before the All-Star game,
I think it was
right?
All-Star game.
Yeah. Um, there was a game where Julio Rodriguez smacks the changeup out of the ballpark. And that was what made the Mariners win the game against Scooble. One of the big things that I realized there was Julio is hunting pitches. And we've said this countless times in this podcast is like when our players are hunting pitches instead of just guessing some pitch and trying to swing at it, they're at their best. And if Julio can hunt the changeup again, I think we have a great chance. I think that all of our players are good enough players that as long as they have a plan of what pitch they want to hunt down, they'll perform really well. That's that's my big opinion with this. Like
Mhm.
that's what having a lineup with almost no holes does for you. Is it gives you the chance to beat stronger teams with a good strategy. There are some teams out there that even if you give them the best strategy, they're not going to perform as well because they don't have the physical and
Talent.
like yeah, not just talent but like the ability to perform at the level that you want them to perform. This team can. And so as long as you give them the right strategy, as long as you give them the right pitch to go hunt down, just like Julio hunted down that changeup in that game against Scooble, I think the Mariners, even against the best pitchers in the league, have a really good chance of winning.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And we're talking a lot about Skubal because that is the basis around the Tigers. I mean, the Tigers without Skubal, they would be an awful team. Like they would not be very good at all, right? They would not be in this position. So if in my personal opinion, the way I see this is the Tigers, from the Tigers' point, they need to win both of the Skubal games. And they need to sneak in a win out of the rest of the three games without Skubal in order for them to win this series. I think if the Tigers are to win this series, it would be in five. And the Mariners to win this series, they can do it from I think a sweep to the five games, right? The Mariners, I think, are a lot much better team. They're more talented and they've been playing better than the Tigers, especially as of lately. But if we can somehow sneak a Skubal win, then I think the Tigers are done for. Like if the Tigers lose one of the Skubal games, which would be game two, they I think it's over for them. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good as a Mariners fan going into this. We have the home field advantage for most of the series as well. So yeah, it's looking good. And I mean, you look at our players, right? And our lineup. Oh, there's also another thing I want to talk about. And we talked about this before the podcast started, but it's the Tigers versus right-handed pitching. Do you want to get into that? Because that is,
Oh yeah.
yeah, that is a pretty important fact to talk about.
Yeah. So the Tigers, other than Riley Green and Kerry Carpenter, are horrible against right-handed pitching. And when I say horrible, I mean just like they can't hit right-handed pitching. And when you look at the teams that have right-handed pitchers, the first team you look at,
The Mariners.
the Mariners. I mean, all of our starters are right-handed. We have left-handed relievers in there that can beat Riley Green and
Very
Kerry
Carpenter.
Carpenter,
Yeah.
and that I think that's going to be one of the main keys defensively and pitching wise because the team itself I think is every person or every batter in the Tigers team is good to some extent. So they're really consistent. But because there's flaws in the players, like you can't hit right-handed pitching or you can't hit left-handed pitching, it makes it really easy to figure out who you want to put in as part of the bullpen. If you have Riley Green coming up, maybe you should put Gabe Spire out there if you have one of the seven guys in that lineup that can't hit right-handed pitching, you put a right-handed pitcher out there. It's really easy to plan against the Tigers, I think, and that's something strategically that the Mariners can bank on to make it not just easier but a lot simpler to plan ahead and figure out how you want to win this game.
Yeah, and it's going to be a lot of pressure on Dan Wilson. I mean, this was his first actual season managing, and now he has to manage a playoff game. And one of the most important things you have to do as a manager is manage the bullpen. Like, people criticize like the Yankees, Aaron Boone all the time for terrible bullpen management. And I like definitely agree with a lot of the fans that are questioning his decisions. So Dan Wilson and like I said, I don't think many of the decisions in this game are going to be difficult. Like if you were the Yankees, for example, and their bullpen is really shaky, like for Aaron Boone, like who are you going to put out there? Do I put Devin Williams? Do I put like, it's going to be a big question mark. But the Mariners, I feel like we know who's good and we know who to trust, especially in our bullpen, right? Like Bizardo, Spire, we trust them a good amount, and then we definitely trust Brash and Munoz, right? We have our guys that we trust out there, so I feel like the decisions aren't even too hard to make. Dan Wilson just needs to go out there and make the correct decisions in regards to the pitching and the bullpen because that is ultimately one of the most important things in the playoffs, managing the bullpen as a manager. And it's going to be really interesting to see how he does it. And yeah, going forward because it's going to be very important. And it might not be as important in this Tigers series because I don't think the Tigers are as good at the team. But if we win this series and go on to like the CS and go against a much better team, it's going to be very important for that. But one thing I definitely don't want is that we don't want to treat this series like even though the Tigers are like not that good and we're saying they're not that good, they still made the playoffs, right? They still have talent. So we have to take this series very seriously, one game at a time. If we could win three games, then we're making it, right? So that's all that needs to happen.
And if you look back at last year, the Tigers made the playoffs, right? And the Tigers sold that season. And by sold, I mean at the trade deadline.
Deadline, yeah.
Jack Flaherty went to the Dodgers. If you're a Tigers fan, you just lost some of your best pieces because the Tigers did not believe that that team could make the playoffs. They did. This season, they went out and spent quite a bit of money to go and get some players that would help the team out. You acquired players and you got players back, the players that went to other teams. And so the Tigers this year, objectively, they're better than the Tigers last year. And so that's where like you're still facing a playoff team that's gone twice in a row and probably a better version of that team. And so, as you just said, you really can't bank on the Tigers being horrible. They're not the Colorado Rockies, not by any means. They're not even the Houston Astros who missed the playoffs. They're the Detroit Tigers, and they've made the playoffs twice in a row. They've made the ALDS twice in a row now, and they're a better version of the two teams.
Yeah. And one other thing I'm gonna say is that I feel like for us to win, if our pitchers play well, I feel like our offense will take care of the rest. If we have a start where we're giving up like 7 runs, I don't like then it's pretty much over at that point in like the way I see it. But if our starters play pretty well, like they don't even need to go like 7 innings, 0 runs or anything like that. But if they can shut them down pretty decently, like maybe only give up a few runs, go like 6 or 7 innings, I think our offense can do the work, especially against non-Scooble pitchers, that we can easily win those games. So I feel like if Kirby out there, Kirby and Castillo, they get the games at home, and I know they've been way better at home. So hopefully they go out there and dominate. Kirby, I remember Kirby and Castillo, I'm pretty sure played pretty well in the postseason in 2022. So hopefully they do the same. And yeah, hopefully the Mariners win this series. Hopefully in preferably in 4 games so we don't have to go against Skubal in the fifth. But I honestly still think the Mariners can win those Skubal games. Just because the Tigers are starting Skubal does not mean it's over. Like last year, the Tigers started Skubal in game 5 against the Guardians, right? But they lost the game because Skubal had a bad game, right? The Guardians were able to they had like one big inning, I remember. Was it like the Grand Slam? I think it was the Grand Slam. But yeah, right. So stuff can happen. So yeah, the Mariners, they have the more talent, and I think that will prevail in this series. But the Mariners got to go out there and execute.
Yeah, and one bad thing going into the series is I think the fact that Brian Woo's injured. Brian Wu has been the best pitcher in this Mariners team for the entirety of 2025. And he went and pitched 25 times, and that was it. Um, for his, I don't know if it's his rehab outing, but he had
He
like,
had a bullpen session and he only pitched 25, I think. Yeah.
yeah. And so it doesn't seem likely that Brian Wu is coming back for this series, but hopefully the Mariners win this series without Brian Wu. And in the next series against either the Yankees or the Blue Jays, Brian Wu comes back and absolutely dominates. That's the hope. I don't think he's coming back this series, but if he does, great. If he doesn't, hopefully we still win.
Yeah, and because one other final thing I'm gonna say is because we had the bye, our players are rested, right? The Tigers, they can't even start Skubal game 1 because he would have had only 3 days of rest, and they prefer not to do that. So we have the advantage in this series talent-wise, and we're rested. The Mariners, if they want to prove that they are a good team and their wins this season weren't fake, this is the time to do it. And Mariners fans, they haven't had much success in the past, like, many decades, and this is like the one time in those amount of decades, like the last 2 decades, that they can actually win. Go out there and possibly win a World Series. And I think this team can do that. But this Tigers series is the first step.
Absolutely. Um, all the Mariners have to do is, I think, trust their talent, create a plan offensively and defensively. And I think that's it. As long as the Mariners have a plan, like For example, if these three batters coming up are bad against right-handed pitchers, you send them right-handed pitchers. That's super simple. But more importantly, if you're facing someone like Scooble, you want to hunt the changeup or you want to hunt the fastball. Just having a plan like that and executing on it, that's going to be really crucial for the Mariners. And I think, yeah, and that's all I have for this episode. Alex, do you have any more?
Um, Mariners, this is the time. Like I said, I just said it again, but yeah, they gotta go out there and perform.
Absolutely. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and our beautiful faces on YouTube. Check out our Instagram. And as always, go Mariners. Let's
Go
go.
Mariners!